All right, we back once again with another video on gamma exposure charts, mainly focusing on just SPY right now. I was doing a lot of Tesla. We might get back into Tesla if these videos start catching on a little bit, if there is an audience that builds up. So make sure to, if you like these type of videos and you want to see more tickers covered, obviously it helps a ton if you like and subscribe, and also share the video as well so that more people can learn to possibly how to trade like this. So the idea is essentially to come into the day with an understanding of the gamma exposure, which is essentially going to be the dealer exposure, either to the downside or upside. And if you understand how that works, it's not incredibly complicated, but it's a little counterintuitive. If you understand how the gamma exposure works as far as what the dealers go, you will be able to pick up on plays like today where you're going from 374 to 380. You'll start learning how to see where the market maker is going to try and pin SPY or a stock, for example, and these charts will definitely help you with that understanding. You can still use, I still use basic technical analysis. I still use flow, all that stuff. But this right here is this type of thing right here is essentially becoming to the point. Once you've done it for a long time, to the point I don't even need anything else really. All I did was look at this today, and I had a really good understanding of obviously where the range was going to potentially be, where the exposure was going to be, and what would happen timing-wise throughout the day. So let's roll through that real quick. So this was the read taken at, this was at 5 a.m. when I looked at this. I couldn't sleep last night, but this is at 5 a.m. And we're seeing a big bar here. So in my mind, I like to track where the biggest bar is at all times. So if I see a huge spike here, think of it like if you're trading volume profile, or this is a standard, this is a distribution, right? And you can see large distribution around this area here. So I knew that this area, this is where it's trading right now, and you'll kind of see that a lot of times. It's going to trade around that area, but we saw a huge buildup in negative gamma exposure here. So what that's going to do early on, especially if it's new gamma, so if you're looking at it and you're going, okay, this wasn't there an hour ago, and now there's a huge spike there, that's going to be new gamma exposure. It's going to be less susceptible to charm and Vanna effects, just because it's a newer positioning. If it's old positioning from say a week ago or a month ago or whatever, those effects are going to really hit hard as the expirations come closer. That's going to be your charm effect as time passes, as we get closer to the expiration. The delta exposure that these dealers have is that they're going to need it less, and so whatever side of the market the exposure is going to act as a repellent. But until then, until those charm and Vanna effects kick in, Vanna is going to be the effect of IV. So basically, you'd watch the VIX. If VIX is coming down a lot, then, and I'll talk about this later, then that's going to affect the delta exposure as well. It's going to affect those gamma exposures. Essentially, you're going to understand where the market maker is going to start acting into the market, because and those are all kind of based on those two second order Greeks, or whatever they call them. Anyways, so I see this 370. I was watching this yesterday. 370 was not this big. So this morning I see the 370 build. Pretty big. It became the highest gamma level. So my first impression on what was going to happen was because they had a little gamma exposure here, net gamma exposure here, I figured there was going to be a pop, right? But we know from the last couple of videos that 380 was massive. So we're going to open up under 380, and we've got a little bit of gamma exposure, not a lot, not enough to really. Not enough here, at least from this chart, to really get over that 380, in my opinion, especially if we open under it. If we opened above it, it'd be a different story. But if you're opening under a big level, it's likely to go to that level or try to make an attempt to it, and then it's going to sell off. And so because we see the huge 370 build up here that's new, I had a really good a really good feeling, or had a probability that we were going to at least sell off into this cluster. This was going to sort of act like a magnet, and it did most of the day. Every single pop into the upside was essentially sold back down, sold back down, sold back down, and you can see that on the chart. We'll go look at a chart real quick here. Let's go look at SPY. Turn all this other junk off here. Let's just look at the SPY like 5 minute here, right? And so our big level was this 370. So, and then 380. But they couldn't even break, previous day low. So if you can't break the previous day low, what's happening? It got sold off. Okay, hey, we're going to 370. Nope. Okay, so they killed the puts there. Now, there was a reading that I took that this 370 was huge at about midday or so. I would go back and get it, but I'm not going to spend the time to do that. Anyways, we saw a huge buildup here where this became just massive. So that was kind of newer gamma exposure that was built up, probably on this sell-off, right? So if you have this much gamma here, and it went to about double, so it went to over minus 50 million, basically through this move here. So people were essentially under hedged or whatever. They started buying a bunch of puts, and they're buying the 370, right? That's just the next natural level down, big psychological level. And so what happened? They all got trapped. This is something I didn't realize early on. It was kind of like hitting me subconsciously. I did not realize it early on that basically all that gamma had been trapped in there. And essentially it got released later in the day. Second half of the day here, anybody that's still sitting here, any dealer that's still gamma exposed, they don't need it as much, right? Because those charm effects are going to start kicking in. The charm is as time passes and gets closer, it's an exponential thing. And you can see we got an exponential move. So all that gamma basically, and I talked about this in the video, this gamma was used essentially as basically a short squeeze, because all those people had to close their puts. As they're closing their puts, the dealer is buying back stock, and so that's causing this effect where it's just pushing the market higher. The flows were just so positive. So you see this energy here that was kind of built up here in this little triangle. I was kind of watching this like, oh boy, because I want the market to go down because I'm just an endless bear. But you see this little pattern start to develop, and you're going, well, all that gamma, they better be able to break this triangle down, otherwise they're going to be squeezed. And as soon as I saw this candle here break up, I knew it was over for the bear. So this is where I started getting long, because it is just a basic chart pattern. But if you understand the dynamics behind it, then you know that. And what I said this morning too is that there wasn't a ton of gamma here at 380 anymore. Like if you watch the other videos, you see that 380 was just massive, and they just held it there until basically all day, and so that was gone. So I knew that if they tried to squeeze these 370s out, they were going to take the 380. So it was kind of like a little chess game that they're playing. Anyway, so they ended up taking it up to 380, closing it above 380, using that big spike down as kind of a bear trap. And you can see the title of my video was essentially Bear Trap or Pin 370. So I had already kind of thought about the implications here of what would happen on the 370s and the dynamics with the 380s being there as well. So that's sort of how it played out today. Was sort of a short squeeze. You had charm effects. You also had the double whammy where you had charm and Vanna, because the VIX just got destroyed today. It's down 7%. So that IV coming down as well is also affecting those puts to an incredible extent. All those overpriced puts that people bought in the morning, people are all buying this huge spike down, and they're sitting here in the 370 or wherever they're at. They're probably, they're all over the place. But those 370s were the big ones. They're sitting there, and the value of their contracts is just getting demolished. You've ever had that feeling where you own a contract, you just know it's wrong because it starts going down as soon as you buy it. That's basically what was happening all day. Every time they came down, they closed more. Every time it came down, they closed more until they basically this is where they got squeezed out, right at that 377, and they took it right back to where they wanted it, and the bulls wanted it to be, was that 380 mark. You can see how incredible that 380 has been. And that's just been where all that gamma has been sitting. So looking forward to next week. Here's some more reads that I was taking, but looking forward to the next week. So you can see that the chart here, they're building on this 386. Okay, so 386 is where they closed it. So I'm going to be watching this 386 going forward because that's going to be an important marker for me. They get to 386, they've got time. They've got a whole day to get there, and you still got 375 gamma here. So, but now the only problem is now you're sitting here where you're basically in a short-term non-volatile. You're basically in a positive GEX environment with a total overall negative GEX environment. So it's possible they take this to 386. And my thinking would be that would be a great reversal point, especially right into that expected range, 387. People thinking it's going to 390, right? Why are people thinking it's going to 390? Mainly because that's where this last little section was. And you could probably just do something like this where you just go, hey, here's the next little level. Okay, so they're building 386. So what you'd want to see for continuation next week, at least into Tuesday, I'd be looking into the next gamma exposure expiries as well. I'd be looking for a build on the 390s. I don't see the build on 390s yet, a little tiny bit, but the next big one is 386. We got to go 385, 386 first before we can get to 390. But that would be the next. This would be the next great spot for a sell, is getting it up here, chopping it around a little bit, getting those premiums down, and then bringing it back down again. That would just be devastating for folks, especially people thinking that this is the bottom. Who cares? Who cares if it's the bottom? If you're trying to buy the ultimate bottom, then you're not playing a long-term strategy, in my opinion. So anyways, hopefully this video helps you. Again, share it if you like this. I'll do more tickers. Tesla is a favorite of mine. And go back and watch some of those videos on Tesla. You'll see whether those were pretty much spot on, surprisingly. So anyways, if you like this, like it, subscribe, comment. Peace.